So it's me again. I really shouldn't have tried to do motivational speeches for the campaign when the brain walked out to the lunch already. I forgot 2-3 major points. Related to the shop, for the merchandise, there's a pre-priced already in going to the campaign, so if you order with your colleagues for the zoo shops shirts, there's €1 already automatically going to the campaign, so that was an important point I forgot to mention. I also want to mention that, of course, we are already working on the projects. Actually, Thomas Ziegler from Cologne, with his team, is currently in Vietnam working with our Vietnamese partners on some of the project implementation. Thank you to those that send funds to the other account already, of course. And it's not just me and Marcel, it's also the colleagues from ZGAP. So if you have questions about the campaign, you can find us the rest of the day and tomorrow. Yeah. So now I promise that I won't come back again.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you all had a good lunch and a good chit-chat and some networking. So this afternoon we're going to hear a number of presentations which are hopefully innovative ways of conserving species that will give you some ideas and give you some inspiration to what you could be doing or how to adapt what you're already doing. So I hope you're going to get a lot to take away from this session. So our first speaker is Volan, and he is from the Bulgarian Birdlife and Protection of Birds, and he's going to talk about vultures. Thank you.
Hello everyone. I know that this is a room full of vulture friends, so I'm very glad that I'm going to present that on behalf of the entire team. So the topic today is a reinforcement program for the Egyptian vulture that we were implementing on the Balkans and how it successfully supplemented the wild population of one of the threatened species in Europe. So we need to outrun the time because that species has been declining for over 30 years on the Balkans. A very steep decline with almost 80% of the population being lost for that period, and now it numbers only about 50 breeding pairs in Bulgaria, Greece, North Macedonia and Albania. So in order to achieve that, we did lots of scientific studies and lots of modeling, and we found out that we need two pillars in our conservation strategy. And the first pillar is, of course, to mitigate the threats that are causing the increased mortality of the adult birds, so that we need to increase their survival with about 6%. And the second pillar was actually the reinforcement program for the species. So, regarding the first pillar, we were implementing a large live program across 13 countries along the entire flyway of the species, from the Balkans through the Middle East to Africa, with over 20 partners, fighting mostly the main threats for vultures, which are poisoning, illegal killing, electrocution and collision. Of course, we did also a genetic study regarding our reinforcement program because we wanted to be sure that the vultures we receive from the captive breeding, from the zoos and the breeding centers are actually compatible with the wild population. So the genetic study that we did shows that there is low differentiation among the populations, as you see on this. Actually, I put these graphs, not that I expect you're going to read them, but because they are colorful. And also we found out that there is no predicted significant impact on the wild population if we use individuals from the different subpopulations in Europe. And that even though the Balkan population is at such a small size at the moment, there is still a very high genetic diversity, so this is not an issue for that population. So we started a pilot reinforcement program in Bulgaria in 2016, the first releases, but most of it started in 2018. And since at that time there was no common understanding about which is the best method to release the birds, we decided to do it the scientific way. We decided to test the 3 available methods and see which one is the most successful in terms of survival for the birds. So the 3 methods are hacking, fostering and delayed release, that I'll tell you a little bit more about them in the next slides. The main sources of Egyptian vultures were, of course, many of them are sitting in this room, zoos, and especially very grateful to Anton Weitel, who is the coordinator of the Egyptian vulture EEP. And here are listed the zoos and breeding centers that provided birds so far. So it's the Sofia Zoo, the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center in Bulgaria, Prague Zoo, Ostrava Zoo, Schönbrunn Zoo, Jerez, and Parco Natura Viva. And also the extraction of some Egyptian vulture chicks that were at high risk of mortality from the nests, wild nests. The first method that we put under testing was the hacking. The hacking means that we were releasing chicks at about 50-60 days old from, as you see on the picture, it's a natural nest that was abandoned years ago. So we closed it and we were putting the chicks inside, feeding them through a tube, and when they were ready to take off, to fly, we were opening the gate so that they can fledge like naturally. Unfortunately, this method proved to be very unsuccessful, like only 20% of the chicks survived until the end of the migration, which is the most critical period, most probably because they don't have parents to show them and to guide them through these first very critical months of their life. The second method was fostering. Fostering is when you take a captive bred chick at a certain age and you place it in a wild nest with a wild sibling, so that the parents in the wild are taking care for the chick. Unfortunately, that's a method that cannot be applied in large scale because the number of pairs that we have available is limited, and also they need to meet certain conditions, to be experienced, the chick to be the same age. So lots of conditions, and when you tick all of that, at the end you have 1 or 2 nests that are suitable. So we released only 4 birds through this method, and the survival was better. It was about 50%, but still not high enough. And the third method was the delayed release. So in this method, you keep the birds for the first year of their life in captivity, and then usually in the spring, in March, we place them in this adaptation aviary, which is in the eastern Rhodos, southeast of Bulgaria. It's located at a feeding station, so the birds spend about 2.5 months in that cage, and we call that cage a vulture school, because in that vulture school we are kind of teaching them how to become wild vultures. Like they have the opportunity to observe the wild vultures feeding around, to socialize with them through the net, because they approach and they are socializing. We have installed also inside a dead tree, because Egyptian vultures like to use dead trees a lot for perching, so that they learn how to perch on it. And we also show them what they can find as food in the wild, collecting killed on the roads lizards, snakes, tortoises. This is food that they usually don't get in the zoos or the breeding centers. So especially with the tortoises, it's very funny. It's something very new for them, and in the first few days they're just walking around and wondering what the hell is that and can I eat it or not, until they get used to it. But this is actually in the eastern Rhodos one of the main food sources, because they find lots of tortoises killed either by cars or by wild boars, and they feed on them. So by this method we released most of the birds, and this turned out to be the most successful method. As you can see on this graph, the survival of the birds released through this method was almost 70%, and it was even higher, with 10% higher than the survival of the wild chicks. And that's strange. And the reason for that is very simple. The wild chicks are suffering increased mortality because some of them misnavigate on migration. They don't have experienced adults to follow on migration and to go through Turkey and the Middle East. So many of them, they try to cross the sea between Greece and Egypt, and it's 400 kilometers of open water, which is just deadly for most of them. They just perish in the sea. But here you can see, these are 2 birds that we released. It turned out that the released individuals actually are better in that. So they take better decisions because they spend more time in the wild, like we released them in spring, and until autumn they have 4 months of practicing their skills, learning, etc. And this turned out to be crucial because when they reach the sea, many of them, they're just trying to avoid it and finding their way around. And those that do not do that, they just stay on the shore waiting for the best conditions to cross, and they make successful crossings. So this was unknown, and this turned out to be a great success, and that's why we switched to that only to that method. So what is the impact on the wild population? In 2022, so only 4 years after we started the releases by this method, already we had 2 individuals that reached adulthood, and they occupied breeding territories. These were Bojana, she was from Prague Zoo, and Easy, that is from the Wildlife Center in Bulgaria, and they found partners. Bojana traveled over 22 countries around the world, but she returned back to the release site, and she chose a nesting area just 20 kilometers from where she was released. And Easy did the same. She actually mated with a wild chick that also had a transmitter, so see what love means. They were flying all the time together, inseparable. It was a really great success story. And in 2023, so last year, 2 more of the released birds entered into the breeding population and occupied breeding territories. These were Zara, that is also from the center in Bulgaria, and Pantelei, who is from Spain, from Jerez Zoo. And this is a video that I don't know how to play. Any idea? Okay. Anyway, this is a nice video of the young couple. So until 2024, just 6 years after the start of the program, we already have 5 individuals that are part of the breeding population. And the breeding population is just 25 pairs in this area. So 5 out of 25 is really significant success. And we start based on the conservation efforts along the flyway, based on the reinforcement program and the success of the reinforcement program. We start to see finally some hope at the end of the tunnel. For many years we were in despair, tearing our hair that the species continue to decline despite all the efforts we do. And finally we see that the population starts to stabilize. It's stable in the last 5 years, and I'll tell you now a little secret that we haven't shared yet, that this year, for the first time in 30 years, we have more pairs than before, and that's a great reward for all the efforts of hundreds of people. So we developed a reinforcement strategy that is available on this the QR code. You can scan and download it if you're interested to read it. And the future priorities are to increase the captive breeding pool. We were helping with that by importing some confiscated birds from Lebanon, from Syria, from the Middle East into the EEP. And also to increase the breeding success in captivity. It's very difficult how difficult it is with these species, but this is also priority to find what is wrong with them breeding in captivity and how to improve it. And also we are saving wild chicks from the wild that we had release with this successful method. So you can find some news, and we publish every year annual reports on this website, and our annual report for 2023 is available at this QR code. So I hope you find some interesting and inspiring information. It's really, there are some very nice also personal stories in these reports. And I would like to really thank all the zoos and breeding centers that participate in that effort, that do their best, because what I show here on the map, on these lovely pictures, is just the pinnacle of what we do. So everything starts from a little egg in a cage in the zoo that is cared with so much love and care from all of you. So we are really strong only when we collaborate, when we work together. So I'd like to thank especially to Anton Weidel, the Prague Zoo, Schondrun Zoo, Zoo Ostrava. We are releasing 2 birds from Zoo Ostrava this year, just 2 days after I returned from here. Sofia Zoo, the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center and Breeding Center of Green Balkans, Jerez Zoo and Parco Natura Viva that supported that program so far, and I hope that more will join in the future. Thank you very much.